Welcome to a community built of tomorrow's business leaders. Hey guys, I'm William Freitas, and this is the Socius podcast. Claudia Neal-Shaw, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Fantastic having you. We're excited to talk to you because we've been friends for quite a long time.
We have.
And, you know, I really love what you're doing. You're in the business of love, but the audience have not met you yet. So if you could introduce yourself, what you do, and I guess how you've got to be to where you are today.
Well, thank you, Will, and for having me. I think we have been friends for a long time, and it's always nice when you are friends and you're both business owners as well, because, of course, you have the personal relationship, but also we get to do cool things like this. So my name is Claudia. I'm a Sydney-based marriage celebrant and MC. My business is called the Love Diaries, and it's all about redefining romance and what that means to a lot of different people. I haven't always been a marriage celebrant. My background was in law and communications. That's what I studied at uni. And when I finished, I did all of my training in criminal defence with a barrister in Sydney, which was amazing and a very different space to what I'm in now. And then I had that communication side, which was very much focused on marketing, advertising, and communicating. And so I think excuse the pun, the marriage of those two, law and communications, has actually manifested into celebrancy. It's that legal side, an understanding of why we create frameworks in the community to protect people and facilitate a space for them to do the things that they want, like getting married. And communication is storytelling and sharing a message that is meaningful to the people receiving it, as well as the people who are wanting to share that message with those people.
It's interesting because it's not often a clear alignment, you know, when you think of, you know, hard-hitting law, you know, black letter law, and then you've got marriage celibacy. So it's very different industries, but it's great to see how you've, again, pun intended, married the two. But give us a little bit of an insight as to what the catalyst was for you to go down, I guess, the business of love.
I mean, it's so funny because, as you said, like most people say to me, wow, it's such a jump from law and communications into celebrancy. And I think that something a mentor told me a long time ago. He was a law mentor of mine. And when I met him, he was a technology lawyer, he was an in-house counsel, and I met him and I thought, oh no, we've got nothing in common. How could someone like this mentor me? And what he really taught me, and he ended up being one of my most influential mentors, his name's Terry, is that everything that you do in life needs to be aligned. And the choices that you make need to be aligned based on experiences that you've had, knowledge you've obtained, lessons that you've learned. And it was very easy for me to connect the dots with that advice and that guidance. And he really enforced that for me, that alignment. And so I think that when we choose to go into business for ourselves, we choose to be employed by someone else, we choose to start projects that have meaning, we need to ask ourselves how we're aligned in that space. The catalyst for me, I finished a 5.5-year uni degree. I couldn't wait to get out of uni. I was the worst student. I really was not interested in sitting in a classroom. And I think I probably should have had more insight into myself on that, but I didn't at the time. I was still in my early 20s. But I was working full time as well. And so I was so desperate to have this practical experience and to learn from other people who knew things that I didn't know, because you can work for yourself or you can study by yourself or be employed by yourself. And if you're not around other people, you have no access to knowledge and experience. You just have only the things that you know, which is not very much when you really think about it. And so I left uni and I was still working for a barrister, and I was still doing some communications work. And I think when you are very focused on trying to figure out what your place is in the world, you get distracted by, well, I've done all of this uni work and I've had these jobs, therefore I need to do something with it. And I think sometimes we need to give ourselves the permission to acknowledge that we've invested a lot of time and energy in something, and that we can use that in a different way to what we thought we were going to use it for.
But what was the thing? Like, what was the moment? I mean, did you grow up wanting to be a marriage celebrant? Like,
No.
because I can't imagine anyone does.
Like you wake up one day, that's what you want to do. No,
Yeah.
and to be honest, it wasn't like marriage was this heavily promoted institution in my household. My parents were married. They got divorced when I was quite young.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that didn't change my view of marriage, but it wasn't, I didn't have this, destiny to do it. I think I went to a lot of weddings. My partner's Italian. We go to a lot of weddings, and we were at a friend's wedding, and there was a young celebrant there, and I'd never seen a young celebrant before. And it just, what do they say? You can only, you have to see it in order to believe that you can do it. And there was a young celebrant, and I went, okay, well, this is something, an opportunity. And actually, Alex, my partner, said, you would love doing this.
Yeah.
You'd love bringing people together. You love, you love storytelling, the connection. And that was the moment where I went, yeah, okay, cool. This is going to be something I'm going to pursue.
Yeah.
It might not be full time, but let's just try it. And now 3-4 years later, 3 and a bit years later.
A thriving business.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, if we dig a little bit deeper, I know you mentioned, I guess your parents were married, were divorced, and that didn't change your view on marriage.
No.
What are some of the things that I guess your parents have taught you over the years that has, I guess, shaped who you are as an individual, and you've taken that into your business?
Wow. Really good question. And I think about that a lot. And as an adult, the relationship that you have with your parents is obviously very different to the one you have with them when you're a child. You're still learning. They're trying to share the lessons with you. And you're trying to bat them away and say, leave me alone. I've got my own place in the world.
I'm Miss Independent.
Yeah. I'm Miss Independent, but also I'm building my own life and I don't need you.
Yeah.
And it's this amazing, this amazing moment when you're an adult and you reconcile all of those lessons and say, actually, my parents had the knowledge and the experience to share with me. And if I'd been more receptive to it, I might have gotten here earlier, but I got here in the end. From my mum, she was always incredibly focused on health, fitness, sleep. She's a personal trainer. We ate beautiful food when we were kids. She was a total drill master when it came to sleep. We were the kids that were in bed when the sun was still up in daylight savings.
Yeah.
And by the time we went to high school, it wasn't something we were embarrassed about anymore. It was actually a part of our life that when our friends rang us at 7:30 p.m. on the home phone, that we'd watch Neighbours and Home and Away and we'd gone to bed.
Because and in pyjamas, you're in bed.
That's it, we're asleep. And that has informed an incredible part of my journey in investing in my health and sleep. And I will do nothing to sacrifice that. It wouldn't, it's so important to me.
It's funny, but why do you think that has shaped who you are? I mean, naturally, being in an entrepreneurial world, everyone gets the thought that you can sleep 6 hours. I know I've been there, slept 5-6 hours and just keep running on an empty tank. And motivation was high, baby, but I was, definitely tired. Why do you think that's so important? Tell us more.
I think I probably had the reality check very young. When I was in year 11, I had an incredibly chronic case of glandular fever, and which turned into chronic fatigue.
Right.
And it heavily informed the way that I took the next steps to try and succeed in an academic setting at school, to then go to university, to then find employment.
What does chronic fatigue look like?
It looks like waking up after a 12-hour sleep and feeling like you haven't rested. It was
like physically not being able to get out of bed, or
not being able to get out of bed, not being motivated to do anything, being so exhausted, that physically exhausted but mentally exhausted. So you're in those final years of school and you're trying to study for your HSC, or you're trying to figure out what you want to do with your life, and you have no capacity to make informed decisions because your body's in shutdown mode. And so, in that space, I learned about, traditional Chinese medicine, amazing acupuncture, and these alternate therapies which helped me move toward recovery. And it did take a long time. But that's now something that 10 years later is still part of my life. And in this traditional entrepreneurial setting, I genuinely believe that entrepreneurs and business people can succeed and still sleep. They can succeed and still have a healthy lifestyle. There is no requirement to, even when you feel like you have these huge goals, you will never get there if you haven't mastered the art of great sleep, a healthy lifestyle, and a beautiful group of people around you to pick you up when sometimes you do fall off the wagon.
Yeah, I think there's no denying it that if you can recover well, then your mind is going to be even sharper. And I found that as well. As you would know, I recently got a whip band, and that's made a huge difference for me.
It's been a shock.
It has been a shock. I was thinking 6.5 hours was fine. And, obviously for those who don't know what a whip band is, it gives you a metric as to how well you've recovered. And when you're recovering 25%, and, I'm big on numbers, and if I've missed out on 75%, like, how good can I be, right? And so that's where I've really shaped my sleep habits, and it's definitely changed, I guess, how I respond mentally. So it's interesting that you've had that take. Tell us more a little bit, I guess, about your dad. What are some of the life lessons you've learned from your dad?
A lot. Both my parents are amazing. I really, I'm so cognizant of that as I'm older now, and I so appreciate them for doing what they could when we were kids and sharing those experiences. And now I think as adults we can probably be all a bit more truthful about them, because sometimes when you're kids your parents are shading you a bit from things. My dad's got a background in media. He's an MC. He's a great public speaker. I absolutely got a lot of my confidence and conviction from him, from my mum as well. They're both really direct people with presence.
Yeah.
My dad is still a sounding board for me personally and professionally. I have a meeting with my dad every Wednesday. Nice. At 1:00 where we share business ideas. We do some work and projects together. And people laugh and they say, "Oh, a meeting with your dad, so you're just going to see your dad." And I'm going, no, it's a structured business meeting in which we are genuinely invested in each other's lives, both personally and professionally. And in that turn, I get to do business with someone who's like-minded.
Yeah.
And we get to build a legacy for our family as well.
And how much of that was a factor in choosing, I guess, you going down the marriage celebrant and MC route? Did you look up to him? Did you see what he did on the day-to-day basis? How much of that played a factor?
I definitely relied on him around the space of being a representative for a client or being a representative for a couple. How can you be the voice piece for someone else? That's why someone hires you. Interestingly enough, I think parents are so proud of their kids when they go and get formally educated. And so choosing to be a lawyer, choosing to have a communications degree, that was the thing that my parents were so proud of. And so I think there was absolutely a period where they said, "Oh, she's going to go and be a marriage celebrant, but she's worked really hard. How do we feel about that?" And it was only probably a moment of doubt for them. They're willing to support my sisters and I to do what we need to do to have a really happy life. And they're also willing to ask questions as well. And I think if you've got that open dialogue of question and answer and guidance rather than always advice giving, you've got a beautiful synergy between parent and child.
I guess that's where I was leading with it, particularly because you can study for 6 years to get a law degree and quite naturally have your parents be like, "What are you doing? Go and enter the legal profession and make a bit of cash.
Yeah.
Do what you've, worked so hard to do." So it's great to see that they were supportive of you in I guess, going after your passion. And, it was great that you found that at such a young age and have, now run a business for 3 to 4 years that has flourished, which is fantastic. And you're also part of a big family, right?
I am part of a big family. My mum repartnered when I was about 10. I have an amazing stepbrother and stepsister, which brings our family of kids to 5, where the big blonde Brady Bunch scenario, but a lot of fun and definitely informed, I guess, my role in that space. I'm the eldest now or I was the eldest of 5 kids. I am. And you very much step into these are my people, my minions, and I must, indoctrinate them into my crew. And so now as adults, we've all done amazing things. So it's cool to see that.
Yeah. I suspect that would have, shaped your, your view on the world and probably your view on relationships in general. I see you as being someone who really holds space and has presence and can build a relationship with people. So no doubt that sort of played a role.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, whether it's blended families coming together, whether it's workplaces coming together, you're meeting someone for the first time, you're trying to understand very quickly what are the commonalities that you have and where are the areas you need to work on together to, again, create a space that is meaningful for everybody. And I think particularly in personal relationships, that can be really challenging because we're all very set in the ways of what we've learned, the ways we've been parented, the ways we've been taught in school, bosses we've had in the workplace. It all informs the way you go out into the world and behave and build relationships.
And do you think that is a challenge that we see in, I guess, today's business world? I mean, you're right. Everyone comes from a different environment, and they carry that with them for the 90 years that they're alive. Particularly within business, is that a challenge that you see? How have you seen it? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Definitely. I think in any space, the higher quality our relationships are, the better world that we're going to have. And in a business setting, it's incredibly easy to ignore the fact sometimes that we actually haven't been given the skill set to communicate and build relationships in a business setting, whether that's leaving school, leaving university, leaving a formal qualification in which you feel equipped to go out into the world and make your mark. But what's missing there is that worldly experience, those interactions with people that you might not have had before. I grew up on the Northern Beaches, one of the whitest, most affluent areas in Australia. That part of my life needs to be considered then moving into a space, particularly of celebrancy, where I'm meeting people of all walks of life. And definitely my university experience, my work experience, you're meeting people from all over the world with different backgrounds, experience, knowledge to share, and everyone has something to bring into the world. I think particularly when I was working in law, a very different space of people, whether it's lawyers, whether it's clients, and you're trying to understand why do people do what they do. And so our ability to be more empathetic and to really take the time and energy to stop and say, I'm willing to understand this person rather than let's keep moving because we get caught up in the rat race of life.
It's funny. I sort of use this principle as well when I'm looking for people, looking for staff. And I think it's what makes a good business leader. Being able to drop somebody in any room and know that they will be able to build a relationship with someone or anyone, any walk of life. Rightfully said, someone in the legal profession may have, I guess, not just a different vocabulary, but a different way that they carry themselves. And so being able to take that into any room, I think, is a huge benefit for business owners. What would you say for someone who doesn't have that experience? They're looking at setting up a business or they're in a business and, they don't necessarily view their relationship building as being a strength. What would you say that they could do to improve that?
Always ask yourself the question, what can I offer to someone else, as opposed to what can this person give to me? And that doesn't mean what can I sell this person? It's what knowledge, experience, feeling. It's the feeling. What feeling can I give to someone else? Will, you and I, we meet for the first time at a networking event. You don't know me. And I come up to you and say, hey, Will, are you married yet? Because I'm a wedding celebrant and I reckon I'd be perfect for you. I don't know that at all. And you don't know that either. But I meet you and we start talking and you say, well, I have a beautiful wife, Nicole. We got married XYZ. We talk about the wedding. We're already building rapport because we're moving towards the common feeling that we're both invested in each other.
Right.
And once someone else acknowledges to you, hey, Will, I'm invested in you, we are so much more likely to want to then invest in that person. And I think so many people get caught up in the quick wins, the low-hanging fruit, rather than saying, I'm on a quest to nurture relationships. I'm not on a quest to acquire relationships. Quality over quantity.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. The setting of a networking event in itself can be super awkward. You know, everyone is there for one reason, meeting new people and potentially growing their business. And it's almost as if it's counterintuitive in the sense that you're not there to, I guess, effectively get anything from anyone. It's about just being curious about what people
And being
are
visible.
into. Yeah.
I think that's something we forget sometimes is, you know, they say in marketing, I mean, now the rates will be much higher, but it's something like 20 customer touch points before someone's even thinking about you again. If you think of that in a business setting, the more visible you are, whether it's at different events, whether it's being involved, sponsoring an event, partnering with different businesses, you figure out very quickly there are very few degrees of separation. And suddenly you are connecting the dots in this web of a wonderful network that isn't built on hard sells. It's built on visibility and recognition and rapport, and saying, great, Will, I did see you at that networking event. Oh my gosh, you know, that speaker was terrible. I'm going to this event and, you know, it seems really great. I saw that you sponsored this. Like you are collecting information and then siphoning through and saying, what's actually meaningful about that?
You know, it's so funny. When I first started my career, I'd read something and I don't remember where it was, but it was something around networking and sales. I was in a sales role, and to be honest, I classify myself as quite introverted. I know it might not look that way these days. I kind of feel like I've acquired an element of confidence that has allowed me to be who I am today and enter a room and talk. But I had read that to be interesting or to build rapport, you just need to ask questions. And that's all I did. Like literally just went into every single room and asked questions. And I found I became so curious into who this individual was. You develop this sense of like love for people and interest and curiosity as to what they're up to. And people walk away, you know, going, wow, that person was really interested in me. And they built rapport effectively. I find that super interesting in the sense that, because people might say, oh, how do I build rapport? Or how do I build a good relationship? I mean, do you have any sort of examples where you've walked into a room and, you know, you've had to do that and it's been a little bit awkward and you've had to turn things around? Because it isn't necessarily easy to think of questions necessarily in an industry that you're not a part of potentially.
Definitely. I always go for the personal. To be really honest, it's very rare that I'm more interested in someone's professional life than I am in their personal life. I think what it comes down to is really labels. We introduce ourselves, hi, Will, I'm a marriage celebrant. Well, that's something that I do, but I'm a sister, I'm a partner, I'm a lover of the beach. There are all of these other identifying features that I think we're so scared to share because we think they're frivolous. And really, it's what you remember about someone. And so actually a few weeks ago, at a networking meeting, we were both at, a gentleman there introduced himself of all the other labels that he is. And it was the thing that stuck with me the most. I still think about it. I'm still thinking about it. I almost ripped him off just then, really. But you're trying to figure out very quickly, how am I going to connect personally with these people in a meaningful way? Because again, it's going to be the things that are sustainable rather than, I know that Will's an insurance broker and in 3 weeks I'm going to forget about that. What was that guy's name? I think maybe he was in insurance. But there's nothing sticky or gluey that's making us remember that person or that thing.
Yeah, it's personal first, right? I completely agree. 'Cause I don't think it matters what it is that you do or who you are. People do business with they know, like, and trust.
Totally.
And you need to peel away the layers of I'm a marriage celebrant or I'm a mortgage broker or whatever it might be.
There are formalities, yes.
Correct. Yeah.
But you got to get personal quickly. Otherwise, we do have that short amount of time, and in such a transactional forum a lot of the time, particularly in networking or whether even having a meeting with someone now, we're not wanting to give away our time so freely because we only want to work a certain amount of hours in the day so that we can sleep properly, spend time with our family, go for a walk with our dog, whatever it looks like. And so we've got to figure out, okay, so in that half an hour meeting that I'm having with someone, how can we connect quickly in the most meaningful way possible? And I think it's to get personal very quickly and state up front why you feel connected to this person.
Absolutely. I really love that because I think people get a little bit lost in, forgetting why they're trying to build a relationship or how to build a relationship.
How could you forget why you want to build a relationship with someone? You might as well ring ahead and say, I'm so sorry, I've forgotten why we're meeting and therefore I don't want to waste your time.
Yeah.
Or you ring ahead and say, hey, I saw this the other day and I thought of you. You're trying to figure out very quickly what is it going to be or what's going to be meaningful for that other person.
Look, I completely agree. So, yeah, it sounds like a real challenge right now in the business world is people aren't building relationships or networking effectively. Now, I mean, because networking obviously is such a broad term.
Yes.
Depending on what occupation you're in or what role you're in, networking can sometimes be seen as a negative. That person is over networking. All they care about is networking. Or they're in the office and all they're doing is staying at the kitchen and talking to whoever.
The water cooler chats.
The water cooler chats,
I'm the water cooler chatter, just
one.
like public service
person.
announcement for everyone.
Cold water or room temperature?
Room temperature now.
Tell me why you think networking is super important and where are areas in your life where you've seen relationships have opened up doors, outside of the business world even?
True networking is simply connection. And it depends what you define connection as. But for me, in order to effectively and meaningfully connect with someone, you're having a genuine interaction where you both care about each other. You're both invested. So if you use that as the benchmark when you're going into these seemingly traditional networking events or networking experiences, you are setting a boundary for yourself which allows you to identify what it is you're looking for. And if it's not there, no problem. You can find other forums in which it is more applicable. There are so many ways that I network and connect in life, whether it's on my daily walk at Balmoral, where I see the beautiful 80-year-old swimmers coming out of the water at the crack of dawn in the middle of winter. We say hi every day. We have a chat. They want to find out more about me. And even those connections, you're building a local presence and connection there as well. Whether it's, I co-work on a Thursday with an amazing female co-working business called Co-Hive on the North Shore. Again, that's something I started recently because I'm trying to understand how can I get more of my days or out of my days with like-minded people who are doing similar things to me and that we can lean on for advice, mentoring, a bit of shit talking at times.
Yeah.
And I just think you learn to have a radar of what is a meaningful connection to you. And the cold calling LinkedIn requests are not those.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because I wanted to lead into the next point that I was thinking was often when you think digital marketing, sometimes it's numbers game.
Yeah.
And we hear that a lot, right? You got to speak to 100 people to get 10 people through the door and you're going to convert 30% of that.
Miserable.
It sounds horrible. And I take a very different view on that. I'd love to get your thoughts on that because I think you can really change your strike rate. I think you can really change how many people you need to speak to when you really focus on, like you said, connection. What are some of the things that you think people should take into their business when they're communicating with their clients or going to a relationship networking setting to really focus on? Because often you'll hear people be like, okay, you're going to go to that networking event, get 3 business cards. Quite frankly,
Boring.
I don't care how many business cards you
Who
get.
hands out cards anymore? I got some printed and they've just sat in my drawer because it's just not, that's not the interaction that I'm trying to have with people at all. I mean, I think there's 2 ways that you can look at it, whether you're a business owner, whether you are an employee, whether you don't even have to be, it's in life really. If you have an aim of connecting with someone, the way that I think about it is always, what are you going to do for that other person, or what value are you going to add to their life? Because if we all generate this culture of sharing what our skill set, what our experience has been, and saying, I've got this skill set and this experience and these contacts, and I'm ready to share them with the world. How about you? And just being willing to come to the table. I think that's what it is. Being willing to come to the table. When you're going to networking events, having tangible goals like get 3 business cards, I would just say, base it on interactions. Have 2 meaningful interactions when you go to this networking event. There are 2 ways that you could look at it as like funnels into your business in terms of connections that you're making. People who are speaking to the same audience as you, and they're going to be great referral partners, and together you can have a symbiotic relationship that turns into an incredibly powerful collaboration. You both get something out of it. You're both invested in the outcome, and you get to rely on their skill set and experience, and vice versa. You get so much more out of life and business when you do it with other people. It doesn't mean you have to go into partnership with someone. It just means that why would you limit yourself to this small amount of things and experiences that you know and that you've had, when you could build meaningful connections all over the world and open your eyes to new ways of doing business, new ways of doing life, that in turn makes you a happier, healthier, more successful person.
Perfect. And if we were to summarize, I guess, the key to your success, particularly in your marriage celebrant business and emceeing business, I can definitely see how connection and relationships can play a huge part to that. But if you was to summarize all of that, and potentially even the health and the sleep benefits in a couple of sentences, how would you summarize that?
The key to the things that I've done or accomplished so far is always, if you don't ask, you don't get, in life and in business. If you're having trouble sleeping and you don't know what to do, you ask someone who can help you move towards a better night's sleep. If you want an introduction to someone in another business and you know that your friend knows that person, you can have a meaningful conversation with them and say, hey, this is who I'm looking to be introduced to. This is why. If you're not comfortable doing it, no problem. But more often than not, people want to help you. And so I think we're so scared sometimes to ask for help. I mean, yes, it's the key to my success, but I still work on it all the time because I'm the eldest of 5 kids. I want to do things by myself. I'm the leader. I'm independent. And my partner says to me all the time, I could help you with that. This is my skill set. And I really have to remember just to take my own advice a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Hard.
I completely agree. It's not always easy to follow your own advice.
Exactly.
But people just get in the way, obviously. And it just comes down to confidence. And I think it comes down to, again, bringing it back to the curiosity of just putting yourself out there, asking the question, asking for what you want to get. And I love that mantra. If you don't ask, you don't get.
Exactly. My dad told me that a long time ago, and I've never, ever forgotten it, ever, even with my parents. So.
Yeah. It's amazing where life can take you when you just do one step at a time and continue to practice that muscle of bravery. I've sort of implemented it in my life before, getting really uncomfortable, just small things, waking up a little bit earlier
Yeah.
or getting up in the cold a little bit earlier.
Just trying.
Just, practicing
Just
that.
waking up and saying, do you know what? I'm going to try to do this. And if I fail, fine, because I can try and do it again. I use it sometimes when I feel like I'm procrastinating doing work. And I'm like, oh my God, a whole day of work. And I just say, just try 10 minutes, see how you go. And just that, I don't know, it's just giving yourself a bit of slack sometimes and saying, you do run your own business. You have freedom and flexibility. Sometimes you take it for granted. But there are always tools and people who can help you to continue living a great life. Just ask for the help and try.
I'll give everyone a hot tip to improving your sleep as well, and it aligns well with putting yourself outside of your comfort zone. One of my good friends sort of challenged me to do something for a couple of nights, and it's to have cold showers exclusively.
Before bed?
Yeah. Oh, and in the mornings.
Yeah.
And oh my God, it was so hard. We're in winter right now. It was so hard to get in a cold shower, particularly at night. And I just timed myself. And honestly, I hated the first 2.5 minutes. I loved the next 2.5.
Wild.
It was incredible. I got out of that shower. It was a 5-minute shower. It was very quick. And I felt on top of the world. So I highly recommend it. I literally looked at my Whoop band the next day and I had the best sleep ever.
Isn't that amazing?
It just does something to your blood flow. I'm no personal trainer or coach, but I just know that it bloody worked.
But someone else shared that with you. And I think there's something in that sharing and saying, hey, Will, I was thinking of you and I know you're not sleeping very well. Maybe try this. Let me know how you go. And so you're incentivized because someone that you care about is invested in you.
Yep.
And you want to go back and share that with them. And I think there's something in that in again, making someone feel like you're thinking about them and you're invested in them, because you're always going to be more likely to want to do it if someone you care about tells you.
Exactly. One of the things we like to do with all our guests is to talk about their vision for not only their business, but their industry moving forward. What's your vision for, now and beyond?
The way that I think about the business of love, and marriage celebrancy is just one vehicle of that. My vision is for the world to facilitate a space for more meaningful connection, whether that's in personal relationships, family, love, whether it's in business. If we can all focus on having better quality interactions, connections, and relationships, it can only do good things for the rest of the world. And again, I think it's just that commitment to us all showing up and ready to give something, because we've all got something to give. And I think sometimes we get lost in the fact that maybe what we have to give isn't as valuable as someone else, someone else's advice or experience. And it always is. For my industry specifically, I think, again, it is a focus on saying, how can we work together as celebrants and then the greater wedding industry to create a space for more meaningful connections between couples of all walks of life and all love and all experiences. And I just think in any space, there's always areas of improvement. And I think continuing that conversation and welcoming people into the conversation who don't believe the same things that you believe, and be willing to have the conversation with them.
Yeah. I think it's really funny. Obviously, the marriage celebrant industry probably profit from a few more divorces, a few more remarriages. But I completely...
Not necessarily repeat business.
Repeat business indeed. But, I definitely see I guess, space for improvement for a celebrant, not just a celebrant, the wedding industry as a whole, to promote, greater connection. I remember when we got married, it was like, okay, you guys are getting married in a Catholic church, go to your priest and you're going to do a 1-week program, whatever it was. There's nothing else outside of that. I know it sounds silly, but, every Tom, Dick and Harry is a business coach these days.
Yep.
There aren't too many marriage coaches before you get married.
It's the pre-education, right?
Yeah.
And all it is, it's relationship education. And that's definitely a resource that I am focusing on for the future, and aligning myself with other practitioners across industry who can contribute to that space of how can we have better relationships.
Yeah.
85% of people's happiness is determined by the quality of their personal relationships. And so if we're not doing the easy stuff, then how hard is it to cope when the harder things happen, the conflicts happen? And so, with civil ceremonies, you don't even do marriage education, really. It's not compulsory. And so I do hope that in the future, there's going to be this element not only of willingness of couples of wanting to invest in themselves, because we all invest in ourselves in other ways, our health and fitness, the big white wedding day, whatever that looks like. But actually investing in yourself personally and as a couple, I think is incredibly important.
Awesome. Claudia, I've loved having you on
Me
the show,
too.
sprinkling your, fairy dust and your sharing your love, which has been fantastic. If people want to reach out to you and find you on your socials, give us a plug. Where can they find you?
So you can find me at the Love Diaries Co. on Instagram, and really that's how you can kind of access the rest of my resources. I have a fantastic Facebook group called Wedding Queens, where that's a very much a planning your wedding, sharing the love, but really having conversations with anyone about their experiences in the world is what I live for. So
Awesome.
Happy to chat at any time.
Perfect. Claudia Neal-Shaw, thank you for coming on the show.
William Fredis, thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Socius, thank you for joining us today. Please hit the subscribe button if you've enjoyed this episode. And if you'd like to be part of the Socius community, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn to stay in touch. Cheers.